So we find people who are really struggling, whether it's students on probation in college or people who have failed their diets or people who have lost their jobs. And what we do in all of these cases is we set people up and we say, we'd like you to be the grit mentor. You are struggling and, for example, you've just lost your job and there's lots of other people in our network who have lost their job. Can we pair you up as an advisor to give grit advice to someone else because you've been persisting and persevering and no one knows this issue as well as you do because you're living the experience. And what we find is that when we take people who are struggling with a goal and we ask them to give advice, that is more motivating than having them receive advice from the experts. Like the person who can't lose weight is more likely to go on to lose weight over the long term if they give weight loss advice than if we pair them up with an expert from the Mayo Clinic, an expert nutritionist. And so I think what this gets at is that often when we're thinking about motivation and effort, we're thinking about it in the box. Like we have to think out of the box. We're thinking about it like every other subject you learn in school. And most times when you're learning in school, you are set up as the receiver, right? Like you're the student sitting in class receiving information from a teacher. And when it comes to motivation and people not exhibiting grit and not pursuing their goals, often the issue is not a lack of information, right? Students who are on probation, they know what they're supposed to be doing. They're just not doing it. I would argue that someone who has struggled for 20 years to quit smoking knows a lot more about quitting smoking and persevering in that domain than I do, because they've read all the magazines and they've gone to all the webinars and they've pursued this over a long term. And so really, it's not an issue of a lack of information. It's a lack of confidence. It's like you've totally lost confidence in yourself the 20th time you tried a diet and you tried to lose weight and it didn't work. And so setting you up as a mentor is kind of reinstilling that confidence. Imagine the last time you gave advice, right? You didn't focus on your failures. When you give advice, you scan your brain and you naturally go to all the times when you succeeded, when you did do it correctly. And then you give over that advice to someone else. And we find that that's actually much more motivating, meaning that we're often just thinking about motivation wrong. We're thinking that, oh, that person needs grit. Let me put them in a grit class. Let me teach them these strategies. And often people already know the strategies that work best for them. And they just need to have the confidence to remember what they know and then put it into practice.